Now, I have done something which I'm not proud of. I don't want to model my mini courses here on what I just did, and we just get so excited about whoever it is that I am talking about, that I forget to go back to the text itself and just, lecture you without textual evidence. I want to make sure that I model for you proper philosophy. You're going to see people out there espousing their opinions, pulling it out of their ass. Here at the Law and Share Philosophy Foundation and in our LCP Academy, we look at the text ourselves. We can point to the very words which occasion our interpretation, and we can demonstrate in full why it is our interpretation is a good one to have by relating this text to other texts, to the tradition of philosophy itself and its long lineage, to our personal experience. This will allow an ordered, a powerful message that is referring back to the text. So let me correct myself. I am reading from Summa Theologica, one of St. Thomas Aquinas' writings. At the filming of this video, you can find that in our shared Google Drive for the LCP Academy under Aquinas. I'm working on getting the library package version of Aquinas in the library package folder. But for now, you can find this writing in the Aquinas folder. So I want to point to the passages in the text which solidify and make concrete and justify the interpretation which I gave to you all, because this is just my view. There are plenty of other interpretations about Aquinas, and Aquinas' view is just one among a vast horizon of philosophical positions one might take. So I do want to acknowledge that. I'm looking in the second article of question 91, the various kinds of law, where he writes, every act of reason and will in us, will being our autonomous capacity, is based on that which is according to nature, as was stated above. For every act of reasoning is based on principles that are known naturally, and every act of appetite in respect of the means is derived from the natural appetite in respect of the last end. Accordingly, the first direction of our acts of their end must needs be through the natural law. So here we have multiple layers to the word natural. So he's not only talking about nature and her laws as they appear, but as we know things naturally in accordance to how reason is, its essence. He's talking about essences. So our reason, even though it is not defined by the laws of nature that are like gravity and natural succession, the spirit, our mind's rationality is something beyond this realm as we experience. It is beyond time and space. So its nature cannot be reduced to the laws of nature that we find in physics. Nature here, he's talking about essences, as he says, in respect of the last end, which we know it to be the divine essence, the common good, and all natural law, whether it be of time and space and natural succession or some sort of formal logical causality, is tied up in that natural end which God placed in the beginning. set into motion in the beginning. So all laws, whether they be of nature or human law, partake of the law itself, which is the law of the divine essence. Further on in the third article, he writes, as we have stated above, a law is a dictate of the practical reason. He's talking about human law here. Now, it is to be observed that the same procedure takes place in the practical and in the speculative reason, for each proceeds from principles to conclusions, as was stated above. We have entailment here. They operate in a deductive manner. Accordingly, we conclude that just as in the speculative reason from naturally known indemonstrable principles, axioms, we draw the conclusions of the various sciences, the knowledge of which is not imparted to us by nature, but acquired by the efforts of reason. So too it is that from the precepts of the natural law of essences, as from common and indemonstrable principles, the human reason needs to proceed to the more particular determination of certain matters. These particular determinations, devised by human reason, are called human laws, provided that the other essential conditions of law be observed, as was stated above. So our reason operates deductively. Even when we are engaged in any inductive natural science, we must lay recourse to our deductive truths, and that which we cannot prove through logic, which is the divine essence itself, what we gain from actual experience with purpose and end. That's something we can't prove through logic, but it's upon those grounds that logic operates. So that's where I was getting all that. For a little bit more on speculative reason, I'm looking at the second article, whether the natural law contains several precepts or only one. Oh, you know what? Nope, after that. Sorry. Whether the natural law is the same in all men, which he's going to say it is. I'm getting my conception of speculative reason from here. For since the speculative reason is concerned chiefly with necessary things, which cannot be otherwise than they are, its proper conclusions, like the universal principles, contain the truth without fail. Apodictic, absolute certainty. And it's with certainty that our practical faculty of reason, the motor which keeps that thing going, can operate. Here we go. The practical reason, on the other hand, is concerned with contingent matters, which is the domain of human actions. And consequently, although there is necessity in common principles, the more we descend towards the particular, the more frequently we encounter defects. So again, the more we start to descend from the truth itself into our particular matters, which we must, because our minds are directed towards our personal state of affairs, our world. We have to act in a certain context, but that context, the more you look at it, is way less perfect than the absolute standard of measure which speculative reason demands that we use in evaluating our situation. So there is a natural tension between our particular situations and the perfection by which we measure our situations. And we're never going to live up to that perfection. So there is some tension there. But through that perfection, and by knowing it viscerally as well as intellectually, we can come to better our environment, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's where I was getting all that from. Now I want to move on and talk about how this human law creation manifests itself communally. In the same manner that we give laws unto ourselves as individuals, we must give laws unto ourselves communally. And we want to have a well-organized community, not only so that we can be productive and flourish, but so that we may also protect ourselves from any sort of outside influence or danger. And so, let me get out my little thing here. Come on. Do. Shoop-boop-a-doo. Oh my goodness, this is so small. Okay. Anyways, Aquinas, he believes that the best way to organize a system of governance is upon the shoulders of a monarch. And this is where he actually sets himself apart from Aristotle, the great teacher, as he says. Aristotle thinks that overall, the best system of government, in most cases, tends to be an aristocracy, where the best men in the group lead the way. They're well-grounded, they know the needs of the community, they're invested in that community, and can put their personal inclinations and privations and what have you aside in order to do what's best for that community. Aquinas, on the other hand, wants a just ruler, a monarch who also demonstrates good character and can put aside personal temptation and privation and desires so that the community is served, that the common good is served. But again, we want one person in charge of everything. And that's because of how our minds are set up. Speculative reason gleans the truth which applies to us all, but we're each endowed with our own practical faculty, which is motivated by personal ends and interpretations of what the community needs. And so when you have an aristocracy, when you have a group of people who are trying to lead the way, you're going to have an act of Congress, which, I'm trying not to get too political here in these LCP Academy videos, but I think a lot of people will agree that Congress gets us nowhere fast. And it's because there's a lot of fighting and chaos and interpretations to go through. Aquinas is going to say, this is not me talking, Aquinas is going to say that it's just efficient to have one person interpreting things and decreeing the laws which are best so that we can, avoid the chaos of accounting for every one of the aristocracy's interpretations. Because where there's chaos, evil can slip in. He writes in chapter 6 of his political writings, which are also in the Google Drive under the Aquinas folder, when it is necessary to choose between two alternatives, both of which involve danger, one should certainly choose that which is accompanied by the lesser danger. So he's speaking of the dangers of the aristocracy. It can very easily become an oligarchy, which is a system of governance where a few people, set rules and regulations for the community based on their own personal financial gain. But a monarch can fall into tyranny and can also be dangerous. So while this is the best move to make, it too has dangers. But the dangers involved in tyranny are a lot less dangerous than the dangers involved in an oligarchy. He writes, but if monarchy is changed into tyranny, less evil flows from this process of change than when the government of a number of the best men becomes corrupt. For the dissension which often follows government by several persons is contrary to the good of peace, which is the foremost goal of any social community. But this is a good which is not taken away by tyranny, for the tyrant only takes away some of the goods of individual men, unless the tyranny is so excessive that it ravages the whole community, in which case we are certainly entitled to rebel. Okay, so a just ruler is going to emerge naturally, as does everything in creation in accordance to natural law. But they usually come about in response to chaos, and they are divinely ordained. Monarchs, just rulers that are justified rulers, are they have a divine right. They're ordained by God, and they're chosen for their ability to bring the common good into their community by basing their community laws, their human laws, off of the spirit and form of the end of all creation. They have objectively good laws. However, just because a monarch is ordained by God does not mean that they are not human, and they may certainly fall into tyranny. And you might think, well, if they're appointed by God, then how on earth are they going to fall into tyranny? Don't they have some sort of divine right? Well, Aquinas might respond with, well, their fall as a tyrant will serve as a cautionary tale for what not to do, and as an example for how to spot a bad ruler in case the people do need to rebel. So he gives the case of the Hebrews as an example. He goes, a similar process occurred in the case of the people of the Hebrews. At first, while they were ruled by judges, they were plundered on all sides by their enemies, for each man did only what was good in his own eyes. Then, at their own request, kings were divinely given to them, but because of the wickedness of the kings, they fell away from the worship of the one God and were finally led away into captivity. It's their own faults that the Egyptians came along and enslaved them, according to Aquinas. Peril lurks on either side, therefore, either the best form of government, kingship, may be shunned because tyranny is feared, or if the risk is considered worthwhile, royal power may change into a wicked tyranny. So I want to go over real fast the story of the Hebrews, for those who don't remember. I had to look that up the other day, so don't feel bad if you don't. So at first, the tribes of Israel were loosely related to each other through a confederacy of little states, and they were ruled by judges. And we get a sense from Aquinas that this system resembles kind of what Aristotle was getting at with his aristocracy. We've got these communities over here, and then the judges meet together to determine what's going to be best for the group. But given that each group has such vastly different needs, the conflict arises, and the Philistines come in and take advantage of that chaos and plunder and pillage and make things tough for the Hebrews. So they call upon God for an answer, and the judges appoint Saul as their first king. And at first, things are great. Saul is a just monarch. He serves his purpose of protecting the community. He protects them from the Philistines. They win quite a few battles against them. They're starting to flourish. They're a well-organized unit, and as a complete whole, they can rationally flourish, and the kingdom of heaven becomes here manifest on earth for those Hebrews, until Saul gets a little bit big for his britches, and he forgets where he comes from. He forgets that it is God and the judges who ordained him. It was the need of the people. He thought that it was him himself who occasioned his monarchness. So he stopped participating in the proper rituals before battle, which honored God. He shunned the judge Samuel. I was like, I don't need you. I'm appointed by God. And the reason I'm appointed by God is because I am so good. He forgot that the reason he's so good is because God created him. So he fell into madness. He wasn't able to handle the responsibility of the community. He fell prey to his own hubris without the backing of God, without the proper understanding of the natural law and this realm of infinite possibility upon which the natural world rests and the activity of the natural world moves. He was unable to handle that. Fell into madness, tried to kill David. He's driven away. So David comes in and he tries to, get rid of the chaos and the disorder and unite things again. And he does a great job of that. Yay, David! But then Solomon comes along and he starts off pretty good too, but he's into women a little too much and gets a little carried away. And then the legitimacy of his heir, Rehoboth, I think. I can't remember. That his legitimacy is called into question, and the tribes split into two factions, which leads to the inability of the Hebrews to protect themselves from enslavement later on. So that story is supposed to serve as a cautionary tale of just how monarchy, even when it's ordained by God, can fall into tyranny. However, we can use that calamity as a cautionary tale and learn from it, both as community-minded people and individuals who are trying to flourish within their own state of affairs. We can learn from that and recognize the humanity in those leaders, and that what happened to them could very easily, in an analogous manner, happen to us. And so we can recognize the structure of their story in our own lives and try not to repeat those patterns and to overcome the evil which befell them when it does appear in our own lives. So God's end is served even though the common good was corrupted in those instances. Pardon me. It's very unladylike of me. What are you going to do? So even though bad things happen, even though this world tends toward corruption, God does have a divine plan. And if we can take it upon